Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we're going to be going over the Ravens' win over the Cleveland Browns to get their first win of the season. And then later on in the episode, we're also going to be talking about the Orioles' loss to the Blue Jays for the Orioles to get swept. So the Orioles get swept in their series against the Blue Jays. They have a big 11-2 loss today to them. We'll go over that a little bit later in the episode. We're not going to spend too much time on that game because the majority of this episode, and obviously the main part of what happened today regarding Baltimore sports, was the Ravens' win over the Browns. The Ravens win 41-17 in a dominant win. It really was a tale of two halves in this game for the Ravens. The Ravens win 41-17. The offense played great. The defense played great. Overall, a very clean win. If you watch the first half, things were a little bit shaky. The offense, the play calling was a little questionable early on. The Ravens had opportunities to score even more points than they did, and they kind of fell short a little bit. And the play calling overall at the beginning was just a little weird. But overall, the defense played great. There was like one big misplay where Marlon Humphrey had an interception in his hand, and he kind of bobbled it, and then it kind of bobbled it up in the air, and then the ball went back to a Browns receiver for a touchdown. So that was kind of a weird play. That's like back-to-back weeks now where a deflected touchdown, where the Ravens defense gives up a deflected touchdown. Last week, obviously, against the Bills, it was deflected off at the tight end, landed in Keon Coleman's hands in the back of the end zone. And then today, Marlon Humphrey had the ball in his hands. He bobbled it, went up in the air, and then the Browns receiver caught it. So, very weird series of unfortunate events regarding the Ravens defense these past couple of weeks. But the Ravens defense played a hell of a lot better today than they did last week against the Bills. But that's also kind of, should have been a little obvious. Obviously, this week we played the Browns. Last week we played the Bills. The Bills are a hell of a lot better than the Browns are. And, the Ravens were able to go out there and dominate on the defensive end and also do extremely well offensively as well. So let's just go over this Ravens game. So going over this Ravens game in full detail, there is a lot of stuff to go over in this game. Again, the Ravens win 41-17, and if you just look here at the box score and you just kind of look at quarter by quarter how the scoring went, you can see it really was a tale of two halves for the Baltimore Ravens. In the first quarter, the Ravens scored 3 points. In the second quarter, the Ravens scored 7 points, and going into halftime, the game was 10-3. So going into half, the game was 10-3. A very close, it was a close game. It was a one-possession game going into half. Very, lots of struggles early on in this game for sure. But 10-3 going into halftime, and then the Ravens scored 10 points in the third quarter and 21 points in the fourth quarter. So there's a lot of things to go over in this game. Lots of key moments that also happened in this game as well. But if you go over and just look at the box score real quick and just kind of going over the basic statistics before we go over some more in-depth stuff that happened in this game. Lamar Jackson played amazing in this game. Early on, did take some sacks in this game, did get sacked 3 times in this game, which is more than he usually does get sacked in a game. Obviously, we always expect him to get out of it and, have some miraculous play. But Lamar Jackson, 19 for 29, had 10 incompletions in this game, but had 225 passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns with 0 turnovers. An incredible game by Lamar, a 70 QBR and a 128 passer rating for Lamar Jackson, among some of the highest in the NFL this week. Again, 19 completions, 10 incompletions, 4 touchdowns, over 200 yards again. Also, no turnovers in this game for Lamar Jackson as well. And I think that was one of the big things you can kind of take away from this Lamar Jackson game is that he did have 4 passing touchdowns, but he also had 0 turnovers. So shout out to him. When it comes to the running game for Lamar Jackson, he didn't really get it going running game-wise. He had 2 carries for 13 yards. Didn't really, wasn't really on the ground much for Lamar. Didn't really have any plays where he had to kind of scramble out and, make a play. And also didn't really have any design. And I don't even think he had any designed runs in this game at all. So maybe one. But Lamar Jackson, only 2 carries in this game, 13 yards. Again, got sacked 3 times in this game. But overall, a very decent game by Lamar Jackson. Again, we've seen some incredible games. And overall, you kind of felt like this Ravens offense just wasn't really firing at all cylinders in this game. and they still went out there and scored 41 points. It wasn't all the offense that scored 41 points. The defense did have a fumble recovery touchdown thanks to Roquan Smith. He had a 64-yard fumble recovery touchdown. Nate Wiggins also had an interception that put the Ravens in good field position. So the Ravens in this game won the turnover battle. The Ravens had 2 turnovers in this game to the Browns 0. If we go over here and look kind of at the team stats in general, you will see that the Ravens did win the turnover battle 2-0, which is good. Obviously, when you win the turnover battle, things usually go your way, no matter how close or far apart games are. But going over to the rushing in general with this game, in terms of running the football, it was really not the best day for the Ravens in terms of running the football. Again, this Ravens team really does rely on the run game that then opens up the pass game, and then obviously the offense flows at a very high level, and that didn't really happen today. The Ravens rushing really wasn't there. The rushing in general wasn't there for the Ravens. If you go over here and look at Derrick Henry, who, if y'all remember last week, Derrick Henry had 169 yards rushing. He was incredible. He had 2 touchdowns. He did have the fumble lost, which was a big part of that Bills game. But overall, he was the leading rusher going into week 2. And Derrick Henry in this game, if you had him in fantasy, I'm sorry, but he did not have a good game today. Even though the Ravens still did get a big dominant win, and they were able to win this game by passing the ball and pretty much Lamar Jackson being a pure pocket passer, which is good to see. And it also kind of shows the versatility of this offense. It doesn't just have to be Derrick Henry. It doesn't just have to be Lamar Jackson. And obviously, when both are firing at the same time, it's unstoppable. But the Ravens can win on the ground. They can win in the air, and they did prove that again today. Because the ground game for the Ravens was not it today at all. This might have been one of the worst rushing games that I've seen by the Ravens in quite a while, even dating back before we got Derrick Henry last season. But especially since we've had Derrick Henry on our team, this is the worst that Derrick Henry is. This is the worst game Derrick Henry's had as a Raven. This is also probably one of the worst games he's had of his football career, dating back to college and high school. It just was not really Derrick Henry's day. He kind of was just getting stuffed at the line, and sometimes that happens even to great running backs. But Derrick Henry today had 11 carries for 23 yards, and that was it. He had 11 carries for 23 yards. That was all. Didn't have a catch. His longest run was 8 yards. And I think at halftime he had 5 yards. So it just really wasn't Derrick Henry's day. Only averaged 2 yards a carry. Again, it happens to the best of them. Derrick Henry has an 169 rushing yard game with 2 touchdowns. And then today he has 11 carries for 23 yards and no touchdowns. It was a complete from week 1 to week 2 is pretty much the complete opposite. But Derrick Henry didn't have a good game at all. His worst game as a Raven, one of the worst games I think of his career. And in terms of total rushing by the Ravens offense in general, not just Derrick Henry, but again, Lamar Jackson had 13 rushing yards, Justice Hill had 7 rushing yards, Zay Flowers had 4, Mark Andrews had 2. So when you go and look at the Ravens rushing, they only had 45 total rushing yards on the day, and they averaged 2.1 yards a carry as a team. The longest run by any Raven today was 11 yards, and that was Lamar Jackson. And it's very weird. It's very weird to see the Ravens only having 45 rushing yards because, again, even before we got Derrick Henry, dating back to just, ever since Lamar Jackson became the full-time guy for this team, 7 years ago, Lamar Jackson, this team obviously is built around the rush and then the rush opening up the pass and then just being efficient on offense. That's kind of what this offense has been. And the rush was not there today for the Ravens at all. The Browns outrushed the Ravens 115-45. So the rushing was not there for the Ravens. But again, it goes to show the versatility of this offense. Where if the running game is there and the passing game is there, this offense is pretty much unstoppable. But if the rushing is in there and the passing is there, you can win by the pass. If the passing is in there and the rushing is there, you can win by the run. We've seen that multiple times, especially with Derrick Henry on the Ravens. But overall, the rushing wasn't great in this game. But going over to the receiving, and again, I will say this: the Ravens didn't go out here for a team that scored 41 points. The Ravens didn't go out here and put up like 500, 600 yards of offense. The Ravens in this game only had 242 total yards. The Browns actually had 80 more yards than the Ravens in this game. So the Browns scored 17 points in this game, but they had more yards than the Ravens, who scored 41. The reason why the Ravens scored 41 points is because our defense put us in a good position to score, and also we didn't really have any super long drives, so we didn't really have to have a ton of yards. So offensively, it was a great day. We scored 41 points, but in terms of like yardage, it kind of was an off day. Really from the beginning, especially the start of the game really was a problem. But overall, not a great day yardage-wise. Like, obviously, last week against the Bills, we had like 450 total yards of offense, and today we only had like 230 yards of offense, but they still go out there and score 41 points because the defense really did put them in positions to score, not necessarily get a ton of yards. But if we go over to the Ravens receiving in this game, again, 225 passing yards in this game for Lamar Jackson, and Zay Flowers, once again, the leading receiver for the Ravens. Last week against the Bills, he was incredible, and then this week against the Browns, he had an amazing game as well. Had 7 catches for 75 yards. And then going over to the second leading receiver for the Ravens in this game. And again, Zay Flowers got a lot of targets in this game. Zay Flowers got targeted 11 times in this game. And the next person that got targeted the most was Rashad Bateman with 4 targets. But Rashad Bateman only had 2 catches. So nobody else on the Ravens had more than 3 catches, and Zay Flowers had 7. So Zay Flowers was getting all of the passing volume, and it really does look like this season that Zay Flowers is going to be, it looks like he's taken a huge leap in terms of his game, but it also looks like Zay Flowers is really going to be somebody that Lamar Jackson is seriously going to target. And again, we know that this Ravens offense does spread the ball out. You know, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, now DeAndre Hopkins. You have obviously both your tight ends and Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. You have Derrick Henry. You have Lamar Jackson running the ball himself. So this offense really isn't funneled through anything in particular. But it does look like for passing-wise, Zay Flowers is going to have a huge role this season. We know that he was the wide receiver one of this team, but it looks like he really has taken a big step here over at least the past couple of weeks. Zay Flowers, 7 catches for 75 yards. Going over to the second leading receiver for the Ravens, and his name is DeAndre Hopkins. 2 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown. He had 2 long ball catches. One of them probably almost should have been a touchdown. One of them, his knee hit the ground at the 1-yard line. But if you look at the play, Lamar threw a deep ball. Lamar got out of traffic. He escaped traffic, threw an absolute dime to DeAndre Hopkins in one-on-one. DeAndre Hopkins caught it. Initially, it was ruled a touchdown. Everyone was celebrating, and then they kind of reviewed it and showed that DeAndre Hopkins' knee hit the ground at the 1, so it ended up not being a touchdown. So D-Hop could have had 2 touchdowns today, but he did have 1. So on the first catch, he was down at the 1-yard line, and also when we go back to that play where DeAndre Hopkins was down at the 1-yard line, the Ravens were at 1st and goal on the 1-yard line, and they passed it, and then they passed it again, and then they got a false start, and then all of a sudden it's 3rd and goal at the 6-yard line, and then the Ravens passed again and didn't get it. So when the Ravens are 1st and goal at the 1 or 2, honestly 1st and goal within anything within 5 yards for the Baltimore Ravens, I know Derrick Henry didn't have a great day today, and this is kind of what I was talking about with Todd Monken earlier on in the first half of this game. When you're 1st and goal within 5 yards, I don't care how bad Derrick Henry is playing in a game up until that point. For you to pass the ball 4 times with this Ravens offense when Derrick Henry's in your backfield and you to not come away with a touchdown, we did get a field goal, but to not come away with a touchdown is insane. It is insane that we didn't score a touchdown on that drive. And shout out to DeAndre Hopkins, obviously, for getting us down there, but Lamar passed the ball, punched out, passed the ball, punched out, and then backed up and then incomplete. So overall, not the best. It's one of those things where it's kind of like just early season wrinkles that you're trying to, work out. When it comes to red zone, the Ravens were effective in the red zone today, but on that one drive in particular, they really could have been effective. And then on the other red zone touchdown that they had, it was 4th down, and then they got it on the 4th down conversion, but the fact that it got to 4th down is kind of crazy because they got to be more automatic when it comes to being like within 10 yards, within 5 yards of the goal line, because the Ravens last year were extremely efficient in the red zone because they have someone named Derrick Henry. And again, Derrick Henry just wasn't a big part of the offense today in general. I think if he got going early, they would have used him more, but he only had 11 carries in this game. So Derrick Henry is not a big part of the offense today. I think next week when we play the Lions, he's going to be a way bigger part, and I think he's going to have a way better game, and I think the offense will be kind of flowing in a more flow state. But this game was pure passing. Again, the rushing was not there. The passing volume was there. It wasn't an extremely high in terms of yards passing volume, but it was there. So overall, again, the offense was fine. Devontae Walker in this game, someone that I really have to shout out, honestly, had two incredible moments in this game. He had 2 catches for 26 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Devontae Walker, somebody who is a very big fan favorite, someone who was kind of a college football legend, and somebody who the Ravens had last season, didn't really get a lot of reps, had a touchdown against the Giants for his first career catch and touchdown in the same time. And then he didn't really play at all last week against the Bills. And then he was in for a few plays in this game against the Browns. And Lamar Jackson sent him 2 balls. He had 2 targets. He had 2 catches, and he had 2 touchdowns. So Devontae Walker has 3 total catches for 3 touchdowns, which is kind of crazy. So Lamar Jackson, I think, maybe needs to incorporate Devontae Walker into this offense a little bit more, because when the ball comes his way, he is catching it and he is scoring touchdowns with it. So shout out to Devontae Walker, has a 2-touchdown game. Not something I was expecting at all. If you asked me and said, who's somebody that you think is going to have a 2-touchdown game today for the Ravens, Devontae Walker might have been the last person I said. And then the other person who caught a touchdown from Lamar Jackson, obviously DeAndre Hopkins had one. He had a one-on-one touchdown in the back of the end zone, which was like the final points that the Ravens scored in this game. So DeAndre Hopkins had a touchdown, Devontae Walker had 2 touchdowns, and then Tylan Wallace had a touchdown on that on the play. And Tylan Wallace had a pretty decent game, 2 catches for 25 yards. Again, nobody really had a crazy amount of receiving yards other than Zay Flowers and DeAndre Hopkins. Justice Sale had 3 catches for 18 yards. Rashad Bateman had 2 catches for 15 yards, and then Mark Andrews had a disappointing 1 catch for 2 yards. And when it comes to Mark Andrews, I don't really know what it is. He doesn't look the same out there. When he's getting the ball, he's not coming down with it. He had 3 targets in this game, and he had 1 catch for 2 yards. And the 2 targets that he didn't end up catching were both in the red zone. And he's just not coming down with the ball. And I do think that getting Isaiah Likely back is going to obviously increase this offense even more. Isaiah Likely is an extremely important part of this offense, but I think that we were maybe underestimating throughout training camp at least, or just kind of what the offensive scheme is going to be. I think we were kind of underestimating how important Isaiah Likely actually is to this offense, because I think when Isaiah Likely comes back, most likely this upcoming week against the Lions, when Isaiah Likely comes back, I really don't think that Mark Andrews has a role. And I really and again, when we heard that Isaiah Likely had all-pro expectations, I think that John Harbaugh was being very serious when he said that, because Mark Andrews just not looked the same, and I can see why they're preferring Isaiah Likely over Mark Andrews. So when Isaiah Likely comes back, I don't know what type of role Mark Andrews is going to have. Maybe it'll help him, but Isaiah Likely, when he comes back, is going to be a big threat in this receiving game. And at first I was kind of like, you know what, he can take his time, make sure he's ready to go. When he comes back, he comes back. But it's at the point now where I kind of want to see Isaiah Likely back in this offense, because it will just add an extra, just weapon, a part of this offense, and somebody who Lamar Jackson has very good chemistry with. But overall, a very solid game. Also, Derrick Henry did fumble the ball earlier in this game. We ended up recovering it, but he did fumble, so that is just kind of something to think of. But when it comes to the defensive end for the Ravens, and the Ravens had some extremely big defensive plays. Kyle Hamilton had some very big hits. Marlon Humphrey had some very, very big hits. The Ravens also had a blocked punt in this game that was recovered by Tylan Wallace. And then the Ravens also had a strip sack forced fumble from Roquan Smith, and Roquan Smith took it 64 yards to the house for a touchdown. And then Nate Wiggins also had an interception on Joe Flacco. Nate Wiggins had an interception, and he took it 61 yards up the field. And just overall, just a very, very solid game for this defense. You look at those, in terms of like the defensive big plays, you look at the Nate Wiggins interception, you look at the Roquan Smith fumble recovery touchdown. Just very big plays for this defense, 2 turnovers by this defense, and again, Marlon Humphrey had some very, very big hits in this game. Also, Kyle Hamilton had his very big moments as well. The pressure was getting to Joe Flacco in this game. You could definitely tell that the pressure was getting to Joe. If we go and look at the people that had sacks in this game, Tavius Robinson had a sack. And Nemande Madubuike also had a sack. So Madubuike, back-to-back games with a sack for him. Shout out to him. Roquan Smith also had 15 total tackles in this game. And I do remember talking about how kind of, there's been chatter within, the Ravens community, and also just in general, that Roquan Smith, even last season, like when we look at Roquan Smith 2 years ago, how amazing he was 2 years ago for this Ravens defense. And then when we look back to last season, he really wasn't amazing. He had his impact plays, but last year, in terms of what you would want from Roquan Smith, he really didn't have an amazing year last year. And even against the Bills, he did not have a good game against the Bills. But Roquan Smith, I think he heard all the chatter, he heard all the noise, and he went out there and had arguably his best game as a Raven. He had an incredible game today. He had 15 total tackles in this game and 8 solo tackles, had 3 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits, and the fumble recovery touchdown. So Roquan Smith, arguably with the best defensive game by any defensive player in this game. So shout out to Roquan, an incredible game, showing why he is still an elite linebacker. An amazing day for him. Tyler Loop in this game did kick 2 field goals. His longest one was a 43-yarder. Made both of them. Made all of his extra points. Shout out to Tyler Loop. This is our kicker for the future. And also shout out to LeJontay Wester, who had a big 23-yard punt return as well. But overall, the Ravens, from special teams to defense to offense, they all went out there and performed well. You look at the block punt. You look at all the big plays on defense. And you also look at the execution on offense when it comes to passing the ball. It was all excellent in this game. The only downside I'd say from this game from a Ravens standpoint is one, there was a couple of injuries that maybe are something to monitor, and then also the rushing was just not there. But I'm not going to sit here and worry that the Ravens rushing offense is suddenly dead. I'm not going to sit here and worry that Derrick Henry suddenly, the age is suddenly hitting Derrick Henry. I'm not going to sit here and worry that this Ravens rushing attack is dead, because we know that it's not true. It was one down week. Every single team is going to have parts of their team that usually performs amazing and they don't perform good. Like for today, for example, the Broncos defense, who is the best defense in the NFL in my opinion, they were playing the Indianapolis Colts, who have Daniel Jones at quarterback. The Colts had a good week last week, but last week they played the Dolphins. This week they're playing the Broncos, a way tougher matchup. And the Indianapolis Colts went out there and absolutely just walked all over the Broncos defense. And that was something that nobody was expecting. And again, it's one of those situations where people are just going to have down days on certain parts of their team. And today that just so happened to be the Ravens rushing attack. But they still were able to win this game 41-17. An excellent win. And then obviously we move on to week 3, Monday Night Football against the Detroit Lions. The Lions today went out there. They had an excellent game. They went out there and scored 52 points in their game against the Bears. And the Ravens and the Tigers. Oh my God, the Ravens and the Lions were the 2 highest scoring teams this week by anyone. Dallas scored 40 points. The Ravens obviously scored 41. The Bills scored 30. So the Ravens and the Lions, as of right now, are the 2 highest scoring teams of the week. And they're actually going to be playing each other next week on Monday Night Football in Baltimore. Primetime game. We're wearing our blackout uniforms. It's going to be a lot of fun. 2 of the best offenses in the NFL going against each other, against 2 defenses that have a lot of talent but kind of underperform. The Lions defense, for example, their defense has some really big names, guys like Aiden Hutchinson, guys like Brian Branch, guys like what's that one corner? But again, as I was saying, the Lions defense has Terrion Arnold, that's his name. The Lions defense has a lot of very, very good talent on there, but they kind of underperformed. When they played the Packers, they kind of let the Packers walk all over them. In today's game, their defense played really good against the Bears, but the Bears still went out there and put up 21 points on them. Their defense still let up a decent amount of points in this game. And like the Ravens defense, for example, obviously they were playing, solid for most of the game against the Bills, and then obviously everything happened at the end. And then today they played very solid against the Browns, had some very big moments, but still did let up 17 points. 7 of those points were off of a tipped interception that was dropped by Marlon Humphrey. It was a weird thing. But when we talk about some of the injuries that happened in this game, there is 3 injuries that kind of stick out. One of them is Marlon Humphrey, who had a groin injury, hoping that it's nothing too serious, because again, we understand how important Marlon Humphrey is for this offense or for this defense, and we also understand that when we're playing the Lions next week, the Lions have guys like Amon St. Brown and Jamison Williams who you're going to want to have your secondary as best and most healthy as you possibly can going into that matchup. So Marlon Humphrey dealing with the groin injury, Kyle Van Noy dealing with the hamstring injury. That happened early in the game and he didn't come back. So hopefully the hamstring injury, he didn't play the rest of the game today, but hopefully it is something that he can work through and be available for this game against the Lions. Because when you look at the Ravens' schedule here, and you look at their upcoming games, they do have some pretty difficult games coming up. I would say that the next 4 games that the Ravens play are against teams that they could, are going to give them a run for their money. Obviously, they play the Lions on primetime football. Monday Night Football, primetime, Lions versus Ravens. That's going to be an electric game. It's going to be a super high-scoring game. Both offenses are probably going to cook. Both defenses, have had their struggles throughout this season, but both defenses also have some very big, talented names on there. So we'll see which defense can do the best to hold each other's offenses, but I'm sure both offenses are going to play great in this game. I do think that the Ravens are going to be favored in this game, which I think is right. The Lions' rush defense isn't great, and obviously, if the Ravens can get the run game going against the Lions early, that'll be very big for them. But the Ravens versus the Lions, that's going to be an electric game for Monday Night Football. We're going to be talking about Ravens-Lions all throughout this upcoming week. Any sort of injury reports, any sort of practice, we're going to be talking about all of that. But then after the Lions, we play the Chiefs, and we're playing the Chiefs in Kansas City. The Chiefs are actually 0-2 right now. And going into the game against the Chiefs, if they lose to the Giants next week, they could legitimately be 0-3 heading into the game against Baltimore. So the Chiefs are going to be playing. We're gonna get a Chiefs team that is going to be very, 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 very hungry for a win. So we're going to have to make sure that we are on our A game. We're going to have to make sure that we're ready to go for that Chiefs game. And then the Texans and the Rams. The Texans are a little bit beat up this year. They don't have the greatest team in the world, but they still do have some very, very, very talented players and they also have a very good defense and some very talented players that could cause some problems. And then the Rams, who are a very solid team. They have a very good offense. Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, Devontae Adams. They have a good defense there as well. So these next 4 games are going to be challenging for the Ravens. I think that they will be favored probably in all of them. But again, just because you're favored does not mean that you're going to win. But the Ravens do have their work cut out for them, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle these next 4 games, especially next week against the Lions. That game is going to be a lot of fun. That game is going to be super high scoring, and hopefully the Ravens can come out with a win. Again, we are going to be talking about that series more, but we'll see what happens with that. Also, I do want to talk about something that did get brought up today, and something that got brought up by Adam Schefter in the middle of, it was like a halftime report. It was before all the games started today. It was like 11 o'clock. It was before all the games started today on Sunday, and Adam Schefter revealed that and this is like nothing related to the football games today, but it has to do with the Browns. Adam Schefter reported that the Ravens were going to take Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, and Shedeur told them not to take him because he didn't want to be in a quarterback room with Lamar Jackson. Not because he doesn't want to be in a quarterback room with Lamar Jackson, but because he wanted to go somewhere where he could potentially try and compete for a starting job. And he knew that if he went to the Ravens, there would be no way in hell that he would ever be starting for the Ravens ever. So he told us not to draft him. So I think that's a very little interesting bit of info right there. So now we're going to switch up sports. Obviously, we went over the Ravens game. Very exciting game. Ravens get the win. We're 1-1 on the season. And if we do a quick early standings check into the season, the Ravens are sitting at 1-1. They are currently 2nd in the division. The Bengals get a win today. They're 2-0. But Joe Burrow is hurt right now with turf toe, and Joe Burrow is probably going to be missing several weeks of the season. I don't know exactly how long that's going to be, but the Bengals are 2-0. Joe Burrow does have turf toe, so he's going to be missing several weeks, but the Bengals still end up getting a win today over the Jaguars. So the Bengals are currently 1st in the division at 2-0. Usually the Bengals are a team that starts off the season bad, but they are starting off 2-0 right now, but they did lose their quarterback for who knows exactly how long. But again, the Ravens are sitting here at 2nd place in the division at 1-1. The Steelers are also at 1-1. They lost today, and then the Browns are at 0-2. So the Steelers lost, the Browns lost, the Bengals lost their QB. So things are looking pretty good when it comes to this division. And when you go over and look at the points forwarded on the season, 81 points forwarded already for the Ravens. That is excellent to see. It's good to see us scoring points, and hopefully it continues next week against the Lions. But switching things up here and going to a different sport, and a game where we didn't necessarily play too well today. The Orioles lost to the Toronto Blue Jays 11-2, a very disappointing game. The Blue Jays have now swept the Orioles. They won all 3 games of this series. They won 11-2 today. They won 5-4 yesterday on a walk-off that just shouldn't have happened, and then they won 6-1 on Friday. So the Orioles get swept by the Blue Jays. They have a series tomorrow starting against the White Sox. But if we go over this Orioles game real quick, again, there's really not a lot to go over regarding this game. They did get kind of blown out of the water. But when you go over this game, Jackson Holliday went 1 for 3 in this game. You know, good to see him continue to do well. Dylan Beavers batting second went 0 for 4. Gunnar Henderson went 1 for 2. Jeremiah Jackson went 0 for 4. Samuel Basallo went 0 for 4. Kobe Mayo went 1 for 3 with a solo home run. Colton Cowser went 1 for 4 with a solo home run. Dylan Carlson went 0 for 3, and Austin Jackson went 2 for 3. Only 7 hits for the Orioles total. Went 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position. Not the greatest day for the Orioles. I wasn't watching this game too much because this game was going on at the exact same time as the Ravens game, so I was kind of locked in for the Ravens game, obviously. But I was still, tuning in, peeping over, looking at this Orioles game. But this Orioles loss is actually the 80th loss of the year by the Orioles. They are 69-80 on the season. They are 11 games below 500. And 69-80 looks a lot worse than 69-79 just because of the first number difference. But going over to the pitching, not a great day. We had someone make their MLB debut, somebody they called up from AAA. Ragsdale, I think it was Carson Ragsdale. Yeah, Carson Ragsdale made his MLB debut today, called him up from AAA, and he went out there, and we'll go over his stat line in a second. But Albert Suarez ended up getting the start today. It was a bullpen game, but Albert Suarez got the start. 3 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts, 2 hits. Not the worst start in the world when you think of this as a bullpen game. Not the worst stat line in the world for Albert Suarez. But then Grant Wolfram came in. He did get the loss on the day. 1 inning, 2 runs. And then Carson Ragsdale in his MLB debut got through 3 innings of work, gave up 9 hits and 1 walk and 8 runs through 3 innings. Not a great day for his MLB debut, sitting at a 24 ERA. I don't know if we'll see Carson Ragsdale for the rest of the season, but this was a very interesting debut, and probably not the way that you would want to start your MLB career. And then Luis Vazquez, who is our backup shortstop, went 1 inning, didn't give up a hit, run, walk, or anything. And Luis Vazquez with a 0 ERA across 4 innings pitched this year for Luis Vazquez, who's a shortstop. So shout out to him. Low-key might be the best bullpen guy on our team, but who knows? But the Orioles do lose this game at 11-2. Very disappointing. But again, it is the Orioles. We've seen this all year. It shouldn't be a surprise as of right now. But we do have a series against the White Sox starting tomorrow. Hopefully the Orioles can win the series against the White Sox. I can sit here and confidently say that. Hopefully the Orioles can win the series and get a sweep, or get a sweep against the White Sox. We'll see what happens. We do have Kyle Bradish back pitching tomorrow, so that's going to be cool to see him back out there. So hopefully Kyle can do good. Hopefully the Orioles can get a win tomorrow, and we move on from there. But thank you guys so much for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow up on Spotify. Make sure to click the link in the bio to check out my Instagram and my Twitter. Post live Twitter updates on every single thing going on, all sorts of news, live game updates, all of that. Post all of that on Twitter, so make sure to give that a follow. Also, make sure to follow the Instagram. I appreciate you guys so much. We're going to have some big news coming out sometime this week, so make sure to stay tuned. And, yeah, I appreciate all the support. I'll see you guys tomorrow. You have a great day. Go O's, go Ravens, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace out.